You people need to wait your turn. This isn't the free clinic downtown where you belong. Nurse Patricia Wells snapped her fingers at the pregnant woman like summoning a dog. Her voice carried across St. Catherine's pristine maternity waiting room with practiced cruelty. Keisha Williams, 8 months pregnant and exhausted from teaching third graders all day, felt every eye in the room turn toward her. Patricia's gesture was deliberate, pointing to the plastic chairs in the corner while other patients sat in cushioned recliners. The nurse's smile never wavered as she delivered the humiliation. Professional. Practiced. Devastating. 17-year-old Zoe Jackson, volunteering at the reception desk, quietly angled her phone. Her TikTok livestream had been showing hospital tours. Now it captured something else entirely. Have you ever been judged so completely that people forgot you might be exactly who they need you to be? 3:47 p.m. 13 minutes until shift change. Patricia's eyes swept over Keisha's simple navy maternity dress and worn flats. The judgment was immediate and absolute. I need to see proof you can actually afford our services here. Keisha pulled out her insurance card with steady hands. Roosevelt Elementary's health plan was decent, but Patricia barely glanced at it. This doesn't look right. Patricia held the card at arm's length like it might contaminate her. I need additional income verification, pay stubs, bank statements. The other patients watched with uncomfortable fascination. A blonde woman in designer clothes whispered to her husband. An elderly man lowered his newspaper. The waiting room had become a theater, and Keisha was center stage. Ma'am, I have a 4 p.m. appointment for my prenatal checkup. Keisha's voice remained calm, teacher-trained to de-escalate tension. Dr. Martinez confirmed it yesterday. I don't care what some appointment card says. Patricia's voice rose deliberately. We serve paying patients first, real patients. Zoe's fingers trembled as she adjusted her phone angle. Her TikTok livestream counter climbed, 847 viewers and rising. Comments flooded the screen faster than she could read them. This is disgusting. Sue them. Where is this hospital? Someone record this. Patricia noticed the phone and smiled wider. She was performing now, showing the waiting room how professionals handled difficult situations. Young lady, put that phone away. This is a medical facility, not social media. But Zoe kept filming. Something about Keisha's quiet dignity, the way she kept one protective hand on her belly, made stopping impossible. Keisha reached into her purse for her wallet, and Patricia's eyes caught something that should have made her pause. The wedding ring on Keisha's finger wasn't from a department store. The 3-carat diamond caught the fluorescent light, throwing tiny rainbows across the reception desk. But Patricia saw only what she expected to see. Another welfare queen trying to game the system. I'm calling security. Patricia reached for the phone with theatrical flair. We have a situation with an uncooperative patient who won't follow protocol. The digital appointment board glowed behind her. Williams, K, 4:00 p.m. Dr. Martinez, prenatal. 12 minutes and counting. Keisha pulled out her phone and began typing. Her thumbs moved quickly across the screen. Same thing happening again at St. Catherine's. They won't see me. Can you believe this? She sent the message and slipped the phone back into her purse. Patricia was too busy enjoying her power display to notice the expensive Hermes bag, or wonder why a woman supposedly too poor for medical care carried accessories worth more than most people's monthly salary. Ma'am, you need to understand something. Patricia leaned across the reception desk, her voice dripping with condescension. This is a private medical facility. We have standards to maintain. The word standards hung in the air like a slap. Keisha felt the familiar weight of being the only black face in a white space. The stares, the assumptions, the exhausting burden of representing her entire race through her behavior. She'd felt it in college lecture halls, at parent-teacher conferences, in grocery stores. Now, in a hospital where she should have felt safe. "I understand you have standards," Keisha replied quietly. "I'm just trying to take care of my baby." That's what they all say. Patricia's laugh was sharp. Free health care, government assistance, someone else paying the bills. A young mother near the window shifted uncomfortably, pulling her toddler closer. An older black woman entering for her own appointment paused at the reception desk, sensing the tension. Zoe's live stream had exploded. Her follower at Justice Now ATL had begun screen recording and cross-posting. The viewer count hit 2,100. Local Atlanta users started recognizing the hospital lobby. "That's St. Catherine's on Peachtree. I've been there. They're always like this. This nurse needs to be fired. Someone get this woman help." Patricia basked in what she perceived as support from the well-dressed patients around her. She was protecting their space, their comfort, their world from intrusion. "Security will be here in just a moment." She spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "They'll help you find more appropriate care." The clock above the reception desk ticked toward 3:55 p.m. Hospital policy was clear. Appointment slots were released after a 10-minute delay. Patricia knew this. She was counting on it. Keisha's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression softened slightly. A text from Ben. "On my way to pick you up. Don't let them upset you, baby. You and Hope are the most important things in the world." She typed back quickly. "They're calling security. I might have to leave." His response was immediate. "Stay right there. I'm making some calls." Keisha looked up to find Patricia watching her with narrowed eyes. "Personal calls can wait until after you leave. This is a medical facility." "I was texting my husband." "I'm sure you were." Patricia's tone suggested she thought otherwise. The security guard appeared at the reception desk. Tony Rodriguez had worked at St. Catherine's for 8 years, following protocols and keeping the peace. He was a good man caught in a bad situation, looking uncomfortable as Patricia pointed toward Keisha. "Tony, please escort this woman to the appropriate facility. She's confused about where she belongs." Keisha stood slowly, her hand supporting her lower back. 8 months pregnant and treated like a criminal for seeking medical care. The watching room held its collective breath. "Ma'am." Tony's voice was gentle but firm. "Maybe we can work this out. What seems to be the problem?" But Patricia was already savoring her victory. Another successful cleansing of the patient population. Another day of maintaining standards. She had no idea that in 7 minutes her entire world was about to collapse. 3:52 p.m. 8 minutes remaining until appointment forfeit. The sound of heels clicking against marble announced the arrival of charge nurse Rebecca Martinez. 15 years at St. Catherine's had taught her to read situations quickly. She saw Patricia's satisfied expression, Tony's uncomfortable posture, and the pregnant black woman standing like she was on trial. Rebecca's assessment was instant and wrong. "What seems to be the issue here?" Her voice carried the authority of management, the weight of hierarchy. Patricia straightened, energized by backup. "This patient refuses to provide proper documentation for her appointment. She's become difficult." Rebecca's eyes swept over Keisha with practiced efficiency. The worn shoes, the simple dress, the obvious exhaustion of late pregnancy. Her mind filled in blanks that weren't there, painted a picture based on assumptions rather than facts. Ma'am, perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the county hospital where they accommodate everyone. Rebecca's voice held the false kindness of someone delivering bad news. They have excellent programs for women in your situation. Keisha felt the familiar burn of coded language. My situation could only mean one thing in Rebecca's mind. Young, black, pregnant, therefore poor, therefore unworthy. I have insurance, Keisha said quietly. I have an appointment. I just want to see the doctor. Insurance fraud is a serious crime, Rebecca replied, her tone suggesting this was common knowledge that Keisha somehow lacked. We have to be very careful about verification. Zoe's hands shook as she held her phone steady. The live stream counter showed 3,200 viewers. Comments exploded across her screen faster than humanly readable. 2 against 1 now? This is systematic racism. Where are the doctors? Someone help her. Her follower at Justice. Now ATL had gone live on Instagram simultaneously, cross-posting the feed. The hashtag #Catherine's Shame began trending in Atlanta. Within minutes, it jumped to statewide visibility. The hospital's social media mentions spiked 340% in 5 minutes. Somewhere in a corporate office, analytics software began sending automated alerts to the communications department. Tony shifted his weight from foot to foot, increasingly uncomfortable with his role. He'd seen discrimination before, subtle and not so subtle. This felt different, darker, more deliberate. Ladies, maybe we can, he began. Tony, please escort this woman to the exit, Rebecca interrupted. We need to maintain the schedule for our confirmed patients. The appointment board's digital display seemed to mock them. Williams, K. 4 o'clock p.m. The timestamp showed 3:54 p.m. 6 minutes until the appointment would be automatically canceled per hospital policy. A woman in the waiting area stood up. Mrs. Dorothy Chen, 67, had watched the entire scene unfold with growing disgust. Excuse me, she called out. That young lady has been nothing but polite. What exactly is the problem? Patricia's smile tightened. Public questioning wasn't part of her script. Ma'am, this is a medical matter. Please return to your seat. Medical matter? Mrs. Chen's voice rose. I see a pregnant woman being harassed for no reason. Other patients began to stir. The comfortable bubble of assumed superiority was developing cracks. Some shifted in their seats, looking away. Others pulled out phones, no longer content to just watch. Rebecca felt control slipping. Everyone, please remain calm. We're handling this situation appropriately. But Keisha's phone buzzed again. She glanced down. Don't move. I'm handling this now. Something in the message made her shoulders straighten slightly. She looked up at Rebecca with new resolve. I'd like to speak with the hospital administrator, Keisha said clearly. Patricia laughed. The administrator doesn't deal with insurance problems. That's what we're for. Then I'd like to file a formal complaint. Against whom? Rebecca's eyebrows rose in challenge. Against both of you. For discrimination. The word hung in the air like a bomb. Patricia's face flushed red. Rebecca's professional composure cracked. That's a very serious accusation, Rebecca said slowly. Do you understand the legal implications of making false claims? Do you understand the legal implications of violating the Civil Rights Act? Keisha's voice remained steady, but something had shifted. The school teacher was becoming something else. Zoe's live stream exploded. 5,400 viewers and climbing. The comments were no longer just outrage, they were organizing. Someone needs to call the news. I'm calling Channel 2 now. Does anyone know a lawyer? This is going viral. 3:56 p.m. 4 minutes remaining. Patricia was losing her audience. The waiting room's attention had shifted from supportive to scrutinizing. She needed to regain control, to remind everyone who held the power here. "Security!" she called to Tony, her voice sharp with authority. "Remove this woman immediately. She's disturbing other patients." Tony looked around the room. Mrs. Chen was still standing, arms crossed in defiance. 3 other patients had phones out, clearly recording. A young father near the window was shaking his head in disgust. "I don't think she's the one disturbing people," Tony said quietly. Patricia's control snapped. "Are you refusing to follow orders?" "I'm refusing to assault a pregnant woman who's done nothing wrong." The words echoed through the lobby. Even Rebecca looked surprised. Keisha felt something shift inside her chest. Not just the baby moving, but something deeper. A lifetime of swallowing indignities, of taking high roads that led nowhere, of being the good example who proved her worth through silence. Her phone rang. The caller ID made her close her eyes briefly. Ben. She looked at Patricia, at Rebecca, at Tony, who'd found his conscience, at Zoe still filming with determined hands, at Mrs. Chen standing in solidarity, at the room full of people who'd witnessed her humiliation. 3:58 p.m. 2 minutes until appointment cancellation. "Answer it," Patricia commanded. "Tell whoever it is that you're leaving." Keisha's finger hovered over the green button. In her teaching career, she'd learned that sometimes the most powerful lessons came from unexpected moments. Sometimes you had to let students discover truth for themselves. She answered the phone. "Honey?" Her voice was tired but steady. "They're doing it again." "Yes, St. Catherine's." Patricia rolled her eyes theatrically for the audience. Another sob story, another excuse, another attempt to manipulate the system. "Put me on speaker, baby," came a deep male voice through the phone. "Let me handle this." Keisha hesitated. In 4 years of marriage, she'd never used Ben's position to fight her battles. She'd insisted on being treated as herself, not as an extension of his success. But she was exhausted. 8 months pregnant, treated like a criminal, surrounded by people who saw her as less than human. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, as if sensing her mother's stress. "Okay," she whispered, and touched the speaker button. The room fell silent. Even Patricia stopped her performance, curious despite herself. The voice that emerged from the small phone speaker was calm, controlled, and absolutely commanding. "This is Dr. Benjamin Washington. Put whoever's in charge on this phone immediately." Rebecca and Patricia exchanged glances. The name meant nothing to them. Patricia leaned toward the phone with a smirk. "We don't take orders from—" "I am the CEO and chairman of Metropolitan Healthcare Empire," the voice continued, cutting through her words like a scalpel. "I own this hospital and 51 others." The silence that followed was absolute, and in that silence, Patricia Wells realized she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "I own this hospital and 51 others." Patricia's face drained of color so quickly that Mrs. Chen thought she might faint. The smug confidence that had carried her through 15 years of maintaining standards crumbled in real time. Rebecca's fingers flew to her computer keyboard, desperately typing Benjamin Washington Metropolitan Healthcare into the search bar. The results loaded with devastating clarity. Forbes profile, Dr. Benjamin Washington, 36, CEO and Chairman, Metropolitan Healthcare Empire. Net worth, $3.2 billion. A photograph filled her screen. A handsome black man in an expensive suit, standing in front of a wall of medical degrees. Harvard Medical School, Harvard Business School. The caption read, "From Detroit poverty to healthcare empire, the Benjamin Washington story." "Oh, God," Rebecca whispered, her professional composure disintegrating. "Oh, no. Oh, no, no, no." Tony stepped closer to Keisha, his entire demeanor shifting from reluctant enforcer to protective guardian. He recognized power when he heard it, and this voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Patricia still couldn't process what was happening. Her mind rejected the possibility that this simply dressed woman could be connected to anyone important, let alone someone who owned the hospital. "We don't take orders from your—" she began again, her racism so deeply ingrained that even impending disaster couldn't stop it. "Nurse Wells." The voice from the phone cut through her words like ice. "Patricia Marie Wells, employee ID 4471, 15 years of employment, current salary $67,000 annually." Patricia's mouth fell open. Rebecca's search had pulled up the hospital's employee directory, and Dr. Washington clearly had access to systems she'd never imagined. "How do you—" Patricia stammered. "Because I own the system that generates your paycheck." Dr. Washington's voice remained calm, but the undercurrent of controlled fury was unmistakable. "Because I personally reviewed the discrimination complaints filed against you in 2019, 2021, and 2023. Because I know exactly who you are, Nurse Wells." The livestream viewer count exploded past 8,400. Zoe's hands trembled as she held her phone steady, afraid to move and miss a second of what was unfolding. Comments flooded the screen. "Plot twist! Her husband owns the hospital! Patricia is so fired! This is better than Netflix at Justice." Now ATL had shared the stream across Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook simultaneously. Oz SD Catherine's shame was trending nationally now, climbing toward viral status. "Security, please escort my wife to the VIP executive suite immediately," Dr. Washington continued. "Tony Rodriguez, I assume you're listening?" Tony straightened like a soldier called to attention. "Yes, sir, Dr. Washington. Right away, sir." "Excellent. Patricia Wells and Rebecca Martinez, you have exactly 3 minutes to report to the administrative offices on the 7th floor. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Move." The Monopoly reference would have been funny if Patricia wasn't watching her career implode in real time. Rebecca found her voice first. "Dr. Washington, there's been a misunderstanding. We were simply following protocol." "Protocol?" The laugh that came through the phone speaker was devoid of humor. "Is it protocol to tell a black woman she belongs at the county hospital? Is it protocol to assume someone can't afford medical care based on their race? Is it protocol to call security on a pregnant woman seeking prenatal care?" Mrs. Chen nodded vigorously from her seat. Other patients murmured agreement. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict. "We have everything on record," Dr. Washington continued. "Hospital security cameras captured every word. Ms. Jackson's live stream provided additional documentation. Multiple witnesses observed the entire incident." Zoe jumped at hearing her name. Somehow he knew about her stream. She wondered if she was in trouble, but his tone suggested otherwise. "Tony, please ensure my wife receives immediate medical attention. Get Dr. Martinez, the good Dr. Martinez, not the charge nurse who shares his name, and have him conduct a complete prenatal examination. Already on it, sir, Tony replied, gently offering Keisha his arm for support. As they walked toward the elevator, Keisha felt the weight of every eye in the room. But this time, the stairs weren't filled with judgment. They were filled with awe, vindication, and more than a little fear of what was coming next. Patricia finally found her voice.
This is impossible. She's
She's what, Nurse Wells? Dr. Washington's voice could have frozen lava. Please, finish that sentence. Tell everyone what my wife is, in your professional medical opinion. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Rebecca tried damage control. Dr. Washington, we had no way of knowing what? That she was married to me? That she deserved basic human dignity? That health care is a right, not a privilege based on appearance? The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. Tony guided Keisha inside, his protective stance making it clear that anyone who wanted to continue harassing her would have to go through him first. Dr. Washington, Keisha spoke for the first time since answering the phone. I'm okay. The baby's okay. Don't do anything you'll regret. The tenderness in his voice transformed instantly. Baby, I will never regret protecting you and Hope. Never. The elevator doors closed, carrying Keisha away from the scene of her humiliation toward the medical care she'd sought from the beginning. In the lobby, Patricia and Rebecca stood frozen like statues of their former selves. 2 minutes and 30 seconds, Dr. Washington announced through the phone's speaker. I suggest you start walking. The remaining patients watched in fascination as the two women who'd held absolute power 5 minutes ago stumbled toward the elevator like condemned prisoners walking to their execution. Mrs. Chen approached Zoe, who was still live-streaming with shaking hands. Young lady, are you getting all of this? Yes, ma'am, Zoe whispered. 9,200 viewers and counting. Good. This is what justice looks like. Make sure the world sees it. Doctor. Washington's voice continued from the abandoned phone on the reception desk. For everyone still in the waiting room, please accept my sincere apologies. This behavior does not represent the values of Metropolitan Healthcare Empire. It does not represent the values of St. Catherine's Medical Center. And it sure as hell doesn't represent my values. An elderly man near the magazine rack started clapping slowly. Others joined in until the entire waiting room erupted in applause. Ms. Jackson, Doctor, Washington called out, somehow knowing Zoe could hear him. Thank you for documenting this incident. Real journalism is about bearing witness to truth, regardless of the platform. Zoe beamed with pride, her live stream becoming the most important reporting of her young life. Everyone else, please know that changes are coming immediately. No patient will ever be treated this way again in any of our facilities. You have my word. The phone went silent for a moment, then Dr. Washington's voice returned, quieter but no less determined. Nurse Wells, Ms. Martinez, I'm curious why you're still in my lobby instead of heading to the 7th floor. The remaining staff scattered like roaches when the lights come on. Patricia and Rebecca rushed toward the elevator, their heels clicking frantically against the marble floor. As the elevator doors closed behind them, everyone in the lobby knew they were witnessing something historic. Not just the fall of 2 discriminatory employees, but the birth of accountability in a system that had protected prejudice for too long. Zoe looked directly into her phone camera. Y'all, she whispered to her viewers, I think we just watched David take down Goliath. And David was 8 months pregnant. The live stream counter hit 12,000 viewers. And this was just the beginning. Patricia's legs felt like jelly as the elevator climbed toward the 7th floor. 15 years of employment, 15 years of pension contributions, 15 years of health insurance and paid vacation days, all evaporating with each passing floor. "This can't be happening," she muttered. "This can't be real." Rebecca stared at her phone, frantically Googling Metropolitan Healthcare Empire. The search results painted a picture of corporate dominance that made her stomach churn. Metropolitan Healthcare Empire owns 52 hospitals across 9 states. Annual revenue, $21.3 billion. Employees, 89,000. CEO Benjamin Washington started with a single $2 million loan in 2015. Built empire by acquiring failing hospitals and transforming them into profitable, community-focused medical centers. Known for aggressive anti-discrimination policies and zero-tolerance approach to patient mistreatment. The elevator dinged softly at each floor. 3rd floor. 4th floor. Each sound felt like a nail being hammered into their professional coffins. "We didn't know," Rebecca whispered, though even she didn't believe the excuse. "We shouldn't have needed to know," Patricia replied, finally understanding the magnitude of their mistake. She was a patient. That should have been enough. But it was too late for epiphanies. The elevator reached the 7th floor, and the doors opened to reveal a hallway lined with corporate portraits. Benjamin Washington's photograph dominated the wall directly across from the elevator, his eyes seeming to stare directly at them. Founder and CEO, Metropolitan Healthcare Empire, healthcare without barriers. Patricia read the motto beneath his picture and felt the full weight of irony crushing down on her shoulders. A security guard waited for them in the hallway. Not Tony, but a stern-faced woman who looked like she'd been expecting them. "Dr. Washington is waiting in conference room A," she said simply. "Follow me." As they walked down the corridor, Rebecca caught glimpses through office windows. Executive assistants were on phones, talking rapidly. Computer screens showed news feeds and social media dashboards. The story was already spreading beyond Zoe's live stream. Channel 2 News. Viral video, pregnant woman discriminated against at Atlanta hospital. Fox 5. Breaking. Hospital staff accused of racial bias in shocking social media video. Atlanta Journal. Constitution. St. Catherine's Hospital faces discrimination allegations after live-streamed incident. The security guard stopped outside a mahogany door marked Conference Room A. Through the glass wall, they could see a long table surrounded by leather chairs. At the head of the table sat a man who radiated power even in stillness. Dr. Benjamin Washington looked exactly like his photographs, but the reality of his presence was overwhelming. This wasn't just wealth or success. This was someone who'd built an empire through intelligence, determination, and an understanding of systems that people like Patricia and Rebecca had never bothered to consider. He looked up as they entered, his dark eyes measuring them with surgical precision. "Sit down," he said simply. And Patricia Wells finally understood that her world had changed forever. Dr. Benjamin Washington didn't look up from his tablet when Patricia and Rebecca entered the conference room. He was reviewing real-time data streams, social media analytics, news alerts, stock price fluctuations, and legal liability assessments. The numbers painted a clear picture of corporate crisis. TikTok views, 847,000, and climbing Twitter mentions, #ST Catherines, shame trending in 12 states. News stations, 47 pickup requests in the last hour. Metropolitan Healthcare stock, down 2.3% in after-hours trading. "Sit," he said without looking up. Patricia and Rebecca took seats at the far end of the conference table, as far from him as the room allowed. The distance felt both protective and damning. Dr. Washington finally raised his eyes. When he looked at them, they understood why he'd built a billion-dollar empire before age 40. This wasn't just intelligence. It was the kind of focused intensity that transformed vision into reality. Nurse Wells. Ms. Martinez. His voice carried the calm of someone completely in control. Before we begin, I want you to understand exactly what you've done. He touched his tablet screen, and the room's wall-mounted display came alive with data. Metropolitan Healthcare Empire operates under a zero-tolerance discrimination policy. Section 4.7 of our employee handbook states, any employee found engaging in discriminatory behavior based on race, ethnicity, economic status, or appearance will face immediate termination. Patricia's hands shook in her lap. Dr. Washington, if we had known... Known what? His interruption was surgical. Known that my wife deserved basic human dignity? Known that health care is a right, not a privilege you dispense based on prejudice? The wall display shifted to show financial projections. Let me explain what this incident will cost us. Legal settlements for healthcare discrimination average $1.2 million per case. That's if we settle quietly. Given the viral nature of this incident, we're looking at significantly higher exposure. Rebecca found her voice. Dr. Washington, we were following standard verification procedures. Standard? Dr. Washington's laugh was devoid of humor. Ms. Martinez, I have the security footage. I have the live stream. I have 12 witnesses. Would you like me to play back your standard procedures? He touched the tablet again. Audio filled the room, Rebecca's own voice, clear and damning. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the county hospital where they accommodate everyone. Rebecca's face crumpled. Hearing her own words played back stripped away any possibility of denial or reinterpretation. Patricia Wells, Dr. Washington continued, your performance was even more spectacular. Shall we review your greatest hits? Patricia's voice echoed through the conference room speakers. You people need to wait your turn. This isn't the free clinic downtown where you belong. The silence that followed was suffocating. 15 years of employment, Nurse Wells. 15 years of complaints that were minimized, overlooked, or buried in bureaucracy. Do you know why? Patricia couldn't speak. Because people like you were protected by people like Ms. Martinez, who were protected by administrators who preferred convenience over justice. That protection ends today. Dr. Washington stood and walked to the window overlooking the hospital's main entrance. News vans were already arriving. Channel 2, Fox 5, CNN affiliate trucks positioning themselves for live broadcasts. Here's what's going to happen, he continued, his back still turned to them. Nurse Wells, you're terminated immediately. Security will escort you out. Your final paycheck will include 2 weeks' severance. More than you deserve, but less than you'll need. Patricia's sob was audible, but Dr. Washington continued without pause. Ms. Martinez, you're demoted to entry-level nursing. Your salary drops from $89,000 to $31,000 annually. You'll complete 200 hours of cultural competency training, perform 100 hours of community service, and write a public apology to be published in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Dr. Washington, please, Rebecca began. I'm not finished. His voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Both of you are permanently barred from supervisory positions at any metropolitan healthcare facility. Those are your choices. Accept them, or face civil rights lawsuits that will destroy your careers entirely. He turned back to face them, and they saw something in his expression that made resistance impossible. This wasn't just anger. It was the focused determination of someone who'd built an empire by refusing to accept injustice. You have 60 seconds to decide. Patricia's career flashed before her eyes. 15 years of pension contributions, health insurance for her family, the respect that came with her position, all of it evaporating because she couldn't see a pregnant black woman as deserving of basic dignity. "I accept," she whispered. Rebecca's calculation was different, but her conclusion identical. Fighting would mean lawyers, depositions, public testimony about her discrimination. The viral video would follow her forever. Better to take the demotion and hope for eventual redemption. "I accept," she said quietly. Dr. Washington nodded and touched his tablet. "Legal Department, execute termination paperwork for Patricia Wells, employee ID 4471. Process demotion for Rebecca Martinez, employee ID 3892. Both effective immediately." He looked up at them again. "Security will escort you out. Nurse Wells, you have 15 minutes to clean out your locker. Ms. Martinez, report to HR tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. for reassignment and training schedule." Patricia stood on unsteady legs. 15 years of employment ending in 15 minutes of humiliation. "Dr. Washington," she said, her voice barely audible. "I'm sorry." He studied her for a long moment. "No, Nurse Wells, you're not sorry. You're caught. There's a difference." The conference room door opened, and 2 security guards entered. Not Tony. He was busy ensuring Keisha received proper medical care, but professional escorts who'd handled this type of situation before. "Gentlemen, please assist these former employees with the exit process." As Patricia and Rebecca were led away, Dr. Washington returned to his tablet. The crisis management was just beginning. His phone buzzed with a text from Keisha. "Baby and I are fine. Dr. Martinez says everything looks perfect. Don't be too hard on them." He smiled for the first time in an hour. Even after experiencing discrimination, his wife's first instinct was compassion. It was one of the many reasons he'd fallen in love with her, and one of the many reasons he'd fight anyone who tried to dim her light. He typed back, "Already handled. Justice doesn't require cruelty, but it does require consequences." Another message appeared from his chief communications officer. "CNN wants a statement. Local news setting up for 6 p.m. broadcast. How do you want to handle media?" Dr. Washington looked out the window at the growing crowd of news trucks. This incident would define how metropolitan healthcare was perceived for years to come. More importantly, it would send a message to every other healthcare facility about the cost of discrimination. He typed his response. "Schedule press conference for 5 p.m. Main lobby. I'll address this personally." One more message came in, this one from an unexpected source. Zoe Jackson had somehow found his direct number. "Dr. Washington, this is Zoe who did the live stream. Thank you for protecting Mrs. Williams. You're a real one." The teenager's message made him laugh out loud. A real one. High praise from the generation that would inherit the world he was trying to build. He walked to the conference room's glass wall and looked down at the lobby. Normal operations had resumed, but he could see the subtle changes. Staff members were more attentive, more respectful. Word had spread quickly through the hospital's informal network. Discrimination had consequences now. Real consequences. Immediate consequences. His tablet chimed with a final notification. Metropolitan healthcare stock had recovered and was now trading up 1.7%. Investors understood that ethical leadership was good business. Dr. Benjamin Washington had spent his career proving that doing the right thing and doing profitable things weren't mutually exclusive. Today's events would become a case study in both business schools and medical ethics courses. But more importantly, his wife and unborn daughter would never again be treated as less than human in any facility he controlled. And that was worth every dollar it cost. 500 in St. Catherine's Hospital main lobby. The press conference podium stood where Patricia Wells had humiliated Keisha Williams 2 hours earlier. Benjamin Washington approached the microphones with the measured pace of someone who understood that words spoken here would echo across the healthcare industry. Cameras from 7 news stations tracked his movement. Zoe Jackson live-streamed from the side, her viewer count now exceeding 127,000. The story had transcended social media to become national news. "Good evening," Dr. Washington began, his voice carrying the authority that had built a billion-dollar empire. "I'm Dr. Benjamin Washington, CEO of Metropolitan Healthcare Empire. I'm here to address the discrimination incident that occurred in this lobby earlier today." He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "First, to my wife Keisha and every patient who witnessed today's events, you deserved better. You received an apology through actions, not just words." Behind him, a presentation screen displayed the new initiatives already implemented in the 2 hours since the incident. The Washington Protocol, effective immediately. Zero-tolerance discrimination policy. AI monitoring of patient interactions. Anonymous bias reporting system. Monthly dignity audits by third-party evaluators. Nurse Patricia Wells has been terminated. Charge nurse Rebecca Martinez has been demoted and will undergo extensive retraining. These weren't knee-jerk reactions. They were the inevitable consequences of choices that violated our core values. A reporter from Channel 2 raised her hand. "Dr. Washington, critics might say you're overreacting to protect your wife. How do you respond?" His answer was immediate and precise. "If protecting any patient from discrimination is overreacting, then I'll overreact every single time. This wasn't about my wife being my wife. This was about a pregnant woman being denied basic human dignity." The hospital's financial controller had run the numbers during the press conference prep. The reforms would cost $47 million across all metropolitan healthcare facilities. Dr. Washington had approved the expenditure without hesitation. "Effective tomorrow morning, every metropolitan healthcare employee will begin mandatory bias training. We're implementing AI systems that monitor patient interactions for discriminatory language. We're establishing a $15 million justice fund to support healthcare discrimination victims nationwide." Mrs. Dorothy Chen, who had witnessed the original incident, stood in the lobby crowd. She nodded approvingly as Dr. Washington outlined each reform. This was how institutional change happened, not through gradual adjustments, but through decisive leadership that made discrimination economically and professionally unsustainable. "Some will ask if these measures are extreme," Dr. Washington continued. "I would argue that what's extreme is tolerating behavior that treats human beings as less worthy of care based on their appearance." Zoe's live stream comments exploded with support. "This is leadership. Every hospital should do this. Real change happening in real time." The presentation screen shifted to show measurable outcomes from the afternoon's events. Immediate results. Patricia Wells, terminated. Nursing license under review. Rebecca Martinez, demoted. $58,000 annual salary reduction. Tony Rodriguez, promoted to head of patient advocacy, hospital-wide staff meeting, scheduled for 6 a.m. tomorrow. Tony Rodriguez, the security officer who refused to remove my wife when he realized the request was discriminatory, has been promoted. Sometimes courage means knowing when not to follow orders. The decision to promote Tony had been immediate. Dr. Washington understood that protecting the right people sent as strong a message as punishing the wrong ones. A reporter from Fox 5 asked, "What's your message to other healthcare facilities facing similar situations?" "Simple," Dr. Washington replied. "Discrimination is expensive. It costs you talented employees, loyal patients, community trust, and legal settlements. But more importantly, it costs you your humanity." The presentation screen showed a final slide. Metropolitan Healthcare Empire Commitment. No patient will ever be judged by appearance. Healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. Dignity isn't negotiable. These aren't just corporate policies, Dr. Washington concluded. They're moral imperatives. Every patient who enters our facilities deserves to be treated with the same respect I'd want for my own family. As the press conference ended, reporters scattered to file their stories. The footage would lead evening newscasts across the country. Est Catherine's. Shame was trending nationally, but the narrative had shifted from outrage to accountability. In the VIP suite upstairs, Keisha watched the press conference on her tablet. Her prenatal examination had confirmed that both she and baby Hope were healthy. Dr. Martinez, the obstetrician, not the demoted charge nurse, had provided exceptional care, apologizing repeatedly for his colleague's behavior. She texted Ben, "Watching your press conference, I'm proud of you. Hope's kicking like she approves, too." His response came immediately. "Change starts here. Our daughter will never experience what you experienced today." By 6 p.m., the story had been picked up by CNN, MSNBC, and major newspapers nationwide. Medical schools began incorporating the incident into their ethics curricula. Other hospital chains announced similar bias prevention initiatives. Patricia Wells cleaned out her locker under security escort, her 15-year career reduced to a cardboard box of personal items. Rebecca Martinez completed her first day of bias training, facing 199 more hours of education about the dignity she'd failed to recognize. But the most important outcome wasn't punitive, it was preventive. The Washington Protocol would protect thousands of future patients from experiencing what Keisha had endured. Real change, implemented immediately, with consequences that would echo across the entire healthcare industry. 3 weeks later, baby Hope Washington entered the world at 6:47 a.m. in the same hospital where her mother had been discriminated against. The delivery room was filled with joy, respect, and the quiet dignity that should have been present from the beginning. Dr. Martinez, the obstetrician who'd provided exceptional care after the incident, smiled as he placed Hope in Keisha's arms. "She's perfect. Absolutely perfect." Keisha looked down at her daughter's face and whispered, "She'll never know a world where she's judged before she's heard." The story had become more than viral content. It had become a catalyst for systemic change across American healthcare. These are real-life stories that remind us why Black stories matter, why touching stories of injustice overcome can transform entire industries. Zoe Jackson's live stream had been viewed 4.7 million times across all platforms. Harvard Medical School invited her to speak about citizen journalism and accountability. She'd been accepted to 12 colleges with full scholarships from 3, including one funded by the Metropolitan Healthcare Foundation. "I just held up my phone," she said in interviews. "But sometimes that's all it takes to change everything." Patricia Wells had been forced to relocate to another state after her story became national news. Her nursing license was permanently revoked. She worked at a call center now, earning $28,000 annually. less than half her hospital salary. The consequences of her choices would follow her forever. Rebecca Martinez completed her bias training and community service. Her public apology, published in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, became required reading in nursing schools nationwide. She remained at entry level, a daily reminder that discrimination destroys careers. Tony Rodriguez had embraced his role as head of patient advocacy. Under his leadership, patient satisfaction scores increased 34% across all metropolitan healthcare facilities. He understood that real security meant protecting people's dignity, not enforcing prejudice. The Washington Protocol had been adopted by 847 hospitals nationwide. Healthcare discrimination complaints dropped 67% in participating facilities. Life stories like Keisha's were becoming rarer, not because they weren't happening, but because systems now existed to prevent them. Dr. Benjamin Washington received the NAACP Humanitarian Award for Healthcare Equity. During his acceptance speech, he said, "True power isn't about building wealth. It's about using that wealth to protect people who can't protect themselves." But the most meaningful recognition came from unexpected sources. Medical students wrote dissertations about the incident. Business schools taught it as a case study in ethical leadership. A documentary crew followed the family for a year, creating an HBO film about systemic change in healthcare. Keisha returned to Roosevelt Elementary as a different person. Her students noticed the change. She carried herself with quiet confidence, knowing that courage could emerge in moments when it mattered most. She established a program teaching children about dignity, respect, and standing up for others. Mrs. Williams, one of her third graders, asked, "Why did those people treat you mean?" "Because they forgot that every person deserves kindness," she replied. But the important thing is that we helped them remember. The real victory wasn't revenge or money. It was the knowledge that Hope Washington would grow up in a world slightly more just than the one her mother had inherited. These touching stories of quiet strength overcoming institutional prejudice prove that change is possible when ordinary people refuse to accept extraordinary injustice. Your voice matters. Have you witnessed discrimination in healthcare? Share your story in the comments below. Every experience helps create change. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more real-life stories where justice overcomes prejudice and everyday heroes transform systems. Hit that notification bell because these Black stories of resilience and reform need to reach everyone. Share this video. Let the world know that dignity isn't negotiable, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon against injustice is simply refusing to be silent.